Sean Payton speaks about Dan Campbell. Did he take a shot? We're going to go over that. He didn't take a shot. We're going to get that. Lions release Jaylen Reeves-Mabin. We're going to talk about that, what it means for the Lions roster. The Detroit Lions bet with a quarterback. NFL Combine. We're going to talk about that. Hendon Hooker's future, as well as a trade idea review from an article. But before we get into today's video, if you're a fan of the Detroit Lions, you're going to want to subscribe to the channel. Why is that? Because I talk Lions every single day. We do news and rumors. We are your stop for it. Let's get this thing going right now. To kick the show off, Sean Payton spoke to the media talking about who is the strongest coach and talking about bench press and all that type of stuff. And he goes, I got to go with DeMeco Ryans. Still, Sean Payton said, choosing Ryans over his former tight ends coach with the Saints. I just saw him earlier today. I've been with Dan long enough to know there's an injury risk. I was in New York with him when we drafted, and I've been with him the whole time. And I cannot believe people are actually taking this as a shot or a shoot. This is not a shot nor a shoot. It's a joke. These two are great friends. It's hilarious. Of course, Dan Campbell's strong. DeMeco Ryans strong. But no way. Dan Campbell absolutely is the strongest coach. I'll take him doing bench press. I'll take him doing anything, up, downs, whatever you want to call it. Why is that? Because if you were to compare him with one person, I would say he's comparable to Bill Goldberg. In his prime, massive dude, big traps, built like a tank. DeMeco Ryans a big guy too. But I got to give the victory and the winner over there to, I got to go with Dan Campbell on this one. I just think he is the strongest coach in the NFL. Folks, who is the strongest coach in the NFL? Do you think Dan Campbell is? If you do, why for yes or why for yes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The Lions released Jaylen Reeves-Mabin. The Detroit Lions news. Detroit Lions will start off with the Lions releasing veteran linebacker Jaylen Reeves-Mabin. The cut will save the Lions $1.895 million. The move comes just years after handing Reeves-Mabin a 2-year, $7.5 million contract that included a $5.245 million guaranteed. The linebacker is going to cost $4.645 million against the salary cap this year, but that will drop to just $2.75 in dead cap after his release, saving $1.89 million. This was bound to happen. Why is that? Because he was costing way too much. Jaylen Reeves-Mabin, he didn't produce well on defense. We've seen that, right? He was injury prone. He's more of the special teamer, special teams guy. That's kind of why we have him on this team. And I fully expected the Lions are to draft a linebacker at some point in this year's draft. 7 draft picks. And it makes a player like Jaylen Reeves-Mabin, Germ, expendable. So I am not surprised at all with Germ being released, and I don't wish him nothing bad. I wish him nothing but the best. So hopefully he continues his career somewhere else. But this was a move that was fully expected, and maybe we're going to see a couple more releases before free agency started. Let's go ahead and transition right now to what the Lions are doing at the NFL Combine, and they met with a quarterback, one being Jalen Milroe. It says, Terrion's one of my best friends. He's my guy to this day. He's somewhere who throughout college we had a great relationship. Milroe said each and every day, building and talking, the best things that we had was we were able to be vulnerable around each other and explain our thought process. It's a social norm to be considered tough and not to be able to express your thoughts, but that's someone I learned to be able to talk to, and that is my dog for life. Jalen Milroe, what has he done this year? 2,844 yards, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, QBR a 78.4. Mobile quarterback. I would say expect to be a day 3 pick, 6'2", 220 pounds, out of Alabama. Always keep Alabama on your sights when it comes to the NFL draft. Why is that? Because we draft from Alabama quite a bit. And when it comes to Brad Holmes, he loves those prospects from that school. That is just a fact. And for the Detroit Lions to draft Jalen Milroe, they would have to then trade Hendon Hooker. That would require to be traded. But look, if that is something that they are considering in a sense of, we get rid of Hendon Hooker, we can bring a younger quarterback who's 22 years old, right, and fits. Okay. It still doesn't make a lot of sense for me. But I do think it's important for the Lions to look at every position. I think it's important to scout for all the positions. So just because they spoke with a guy doesn't mean they're going to draft. Again, they definitely draft from the people they bring in and who they speak to. That is important. But remember, they don't draft everybody that they speak to and or talk to or have a meeting with. So it could be a situation where maybe he somehow falls, right, in the Lions. It's just a selection that's a priority pick, right? It's one of those deals where there is no reason not to go ahead and draft a guy if he keeps sliding. So that would be my situation. But again, it would have to require a trade from the Detroit Lions relieving Hendon Hooker from this franchise. And there's an article just came out talking about a trade of that nature. And this one was interesting. It was the Detroit Lions trading Hendon Hooker to the Tennessee Titans for a late day 3 pick. It didn't say what type pick, just said a late day 3 pick. And this is from the Sporting News. And they said, under Callahan's offensive scheme, it would fit Hooker well. With Hooker coming from Tennessee with a vertical passing style, it would optimize the talent of Calvin Ridley as well. Hooker is an athletic quarterback that would generate good velocity in the passing the ball accuracy, which all 3 levels in the field. This creative instincts and pocket maneuverability would help elevate the ceiling of the Titans and the ideal quarterback to get on this offense to turn it around. That's what their writers are thinking. That's what they think over there for Tennessee. Would you trade Hendon Hooker? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you draft Milroe? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, right, where we're talking about this. A late day 3 pick, I think that would be terrible trade in my opinion. We spent a second day pick on Hendon Hooker. Okay, he was injured. We drafted him. We developed him. Why would we trade him away for basically nothing then? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me to trade him away for nothing. If you're to trade away a Hendon Hooker, I think we'd want to get equivalent to what we invested into him, and that would be a day 3 pick. So from this standpoint, from that trade value, I don't see a lot of value right there. I think it wouldn't make sense. Hendon Hooker to the Titans, could that make sense for their team? Yeah, but it would have to be better than a day 3 pick. It just doesn't make sense. We invested all this time in Hendon Hooker to then get rid of him. A little bit off, if you ask me. That's just my personal opinion on this. And there's another trade idea coming out from the mainstream media. And this is for the Detroit Lions to trade for Joey Bosa. The Chargers get a 4th-round pick. The Detroit Lions get Joey Bosa. And this came from the Bleacher Report. They said there's a reason why the 2016 number 3 overall pick was mentioned as a trade or even get cut candidate for much of the offseason, especially if the Chargers have aspirations of re-signing fellow edge rusher Khalil Mack. The Detroit Lions have mentioned as a potential trade partner for any number of rushers, including stars such as Max Crosby and Myles Garrett. Now, it continues to go on this article, in which is correct, in my opinion, that the Detroit Lions are not wanting to get a top-end star like a Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson. It doesn't seem likely. And their concept in this article is the Detroit Lions then going out there, and instead of getting a big trade, you can get a player, Joey Bosa, who's at the end of his career. It's not going to require a lot of trade capital, a 4th-round pick in this instant, to get a player who can be on this defensive line immediately. Now, that sounds all great and dandy. That sounds lovely from the thought process of it. But when you consider the fact that they're probably going to release Joey Bosa, why would you trade for a player who's going to be a cut candidate, who's going to get released? You're not stuck on the contract that they're in, because if you trade for the Joey Bosa, you're trading for their contract. But if the player gets released, you can make your own contract up. Yes, there's going to be other teams the ability to get the player, But are you willing to throw away a 4th-round pick for an old veteran when there's a great chance he can get released? My idea on that is no. So let me know your thoughts. Would you trade for Joey Bosa? No, I would not trade for Joey Bosa. With that said, I would sign him if he gets released, if all other options fail. I'm still looking for a veteran pass rusher. It doesn't necessarily need to be an every down guy, because I feel like the Detroit Lions, and I trust that Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, this regime, is going to pick up pass rush in this year's draft, probably at the 28th pick. So I believe in that. So the Lions need to have a veteran as well. It doesn't need to be an every down guy, but somebody that can come in and help the young talent out. And in my opinion, a player like a Joey Bosa, if he's released, or a Khalil Mack, whatever, makes a lot of sense because it's not going to be the most expensive, but it can help the Lions out. So there's no reason to trade for Joe Bosa who gets released. Just doesn't make a lot of sense if you ask me. Just sign him in free agency. The Lions, they're trying to be smart with their cap as well. And this is something we talk about free agency. They're trying to be responsible. We keep saying they're not going to go for the big names. They're not going to go for all that type of stuff. They're not going to just make trade to make a trade. They're going to try to do value. So even if a Joey Bosa is released, not like they're going to jump on it. They want to make sure that whoever they bring in here, pass rush, is a Lions guy that's going to bring value, but not necessarily the Myles Garrett type. So that's why we look at players like a Joey Bosa. But trading for one, no. Signing, yes. Let me know your thoughts about today's Lions news. Adios.